Well, thank you for that nice introduction, and I'm happy to be here and well, to have you all in this session. So it's always a bit scary to talk to that many people. It's easier to do it online, it's just hitting a button and just talk. But now I can see your faces, I can see your body language, I can see who's paying attention, who's falling asleep. And it's easier online because, well, you have a lot of screens. So I do have to focus on my breath or my breathing. So I'm just going through some of the Mentimeter things that were entered, because you cannot see them, but I can. So the question was, what is the worst thing you could do to mess up your Scrum? And I don't know if you entered yet, but you still have a chance. We have scope change, we have no planning, we have micromanagement, too late for meetings, not communicating, changing the sprint, no retro, too many meetings, neglection, waterfall, lack of prioritization. So we obviously know things how to totally mess up your Scrum. And I hope today that I will give you 5 options to improve or to boost your Scrum. So that's what this talk will be about. So that's going to be the main topic. And it's about, well, 5 ways to boost your Scrum. And I will be facilitating it. I'm not the expert on this. But I do want to facilitate you, and I do want to facilitate your knowledge in getting to some answers how to boost your Scrum. And so I'm not the most important person here. You are, because I hope you're going to share some things and walk out this room with some ideas how to boost your Scrum. And we're going to do that in an interactive way. So if you thought, oh, we had a break, I'm now going to relax, that's not the case. So beware, it's going to be an interactive session using some brain science. First thing, get up, stand up. If you have, well, thank you for that. If you have 0 to 2 years of experience with Scrum. And I'm checking out the Zoom people also. Is there anybody who has 0 to 2 years experience of Scrum? This is your chance to stand up. Everybody more than 2 years? Well, that's great. Then you probably have some good ideas. Oh, okay, 0 to 2 years. So everybody who has 2 to 5 years of experience with Scrum, can you please stand up? Yeah, you can sit down again. Yeah. So 2 to 5 years of experience with Scrum. I said it was interactive, so that's a start. Next one, 5 to 10 years of experience with Scrum. Nice, great. Good. So I hope you can share some experience today with the less experienced people. Checking out 72 participants in Zoom. They're all sitting. Maybe you have stood up earlier, I don't know. But I'm looking at you, Zoom participants. Last one. Anyone more than 5 to 10 years of experience? That's great. Yeah, so you can see, yeah, and Zoom people. So you probably have gone through it all the challenges, all the things that you could improve, and you might think, okay, what's more to improve? I've been experiencing in Scrum for 10 years. There's always something to improve. So also for the very experienced people, if there's only one thing that you can take out of the session, I am a happy person. I would stay standing for myself because I have 13 years of experience in Scrum, so I've learned a lot, but I think there's still a lot to learn. And every day you try to find something that you could learn from. So I hope this will be learningful for everybody, or learnful, I should say. Well, for most of you, this then probably is quite clear. So what we're trying to do with Scrum is delivering done stuff, delivering done increments. The main purpose of Scrum is delivering done increments. This is done by self-managing teams and using the Scrum framework and the Scrum values. So I don't have to go deep into this because I saw a lot of experience, so that's good. And it's also about the foundation of Scrum, of course. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. That should not be new to you. It's empiricism. But next to that, You're trying to work with Scrum, but they're the Scrum values. We've seen them already a few times on the screen, and I hope you know them by heart. It's very clear what you should do. It's delivering done increments. But what happens if you do Scrum well? That's a question that I'm going to ask to you. And I'm going to ask you to pair up with someone, so in pairs, and discuss these 4 images. What do they mean with regards, what does the graph about visibility mean? What does the ability to change mean? And business value and risk. For the people at home or at the office in the Zoom, this is kind of hard. So we will be in this for 4 minutes. But yeah, I'm sorry for that. We don't have breakout rooms. So Zoom, for the people on Zoom, I'm very sorry. You just have to listen for 4 minutes to a lot of mumbling, probably. So go ahead, find a partner. If you stick with the first image for a long time, for 3 minutes, then you have less time for the others. But if you distribute your time equally, you have 1 minute per graph. So find someone and discuss it. I'll set the timer for 4 minutes. Okay, so that was the timer. I hope you have had a good conversation about these 4 images. They make for me very clear what advantages you have. And I saw some people had to look it up because they were on their phones, and that's okay if you have to look it up. If you don't know, you can use your phone if you need. So it's about high visibility. You have higher visibility in Scrum on your progress, on your results. And you want to show them every sprint. You have a high ability to change. Every time you can change your mind. Business value is delivered right from the start, not at a big bang at the end. And you start decreasing risk of building the wrong stuff right from the start. So whenever you need to explain, okay, but why do we need to use Scrum? Or if you want to convince someone to use Scrum, these 4 images work very well in explaining that. So these are kind of 4 key factors of using Scrum. Then let's go a little bit deeper, not deeper, a different aspect of Scrum or the Scrum framework is there's a framework. Why not use it? The rules of Scrum, they are set. So they are 353. We call it 353. We have 3 events, three accountability. We have 5 events and 3 artifacts. So what do you do when something doesn't work? You don't skip the rule. You just try to make it work. It's just like if you're playing soccer and you're removing the offside rule or something. Is it still soccer? No, it's not. It's something different. So if you want to use Scrum and if you want to get the most value out of it, play by the rules. And we sometimes call not playing by the rules fake Scrum, or non-professional Scrum, or even zombie Scrum. These are the rules, play by the game. So one of the things that you could do to boost your Scrum is stick to the rules. They're not that hard. We have these 3 accountabilities, 5 events, and 3 artifacts. So on your card, I'm going to ask you to write down, there's a card that says 353, and I hope everybody got the cards. I want you to write down the 3 accountabilities in Scrum. Which are they? And for the people on Zoom, you can enter them in the chat if you know. 3 accountabilities in Scrum. What are they? And again, I see some people on phones. That's okay. If you don't know the answer, I'll give you the answer in a moment. Just write them down. So we have 3 accountabilities. The product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. Exactly. So the word accountabilities might have confused you. They used to be called roles in earlier Scrum guides, but now we call them accountabilities. The reason that is because roles kind of became a box where you should stay in. This is my role. I'm a product owner. I cannot do anything else because I'm a product owner. And then they moved the wording to accountabilities, because accountabilities you can share, you can delegate, and that's why we call them now roles. Sorry, accountabilities and not roles, because they kind of became a box. So that might have confused you, but it's product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. One of the things that you could do to boost your Scrum is to unleash your Scrum Masters. In a lot of organizations, we now have Agile coaches on top of Scrum Masters, where the Scrum Masters are stuck with the team. But the intent of the Scrum Master accountability is also to go into the organization and to share, hey, we are doing Scrum, this is why we're doing it, using those 4 graphics, maybe, and also looking further than just your Scrum island. In a lot of organizations, we see Agile coaches on top of that, limiting the accountabilities of a Scrum Master. And you don't want that, because the role of the Scrum Master is so important that it goes beyond just having happy Scrum on your bounty Scrum island. If you're doing happy Scrum on your bounty island, Scrum island, and if you take one step off that island and you run into a lot of walls and a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of hierarchy, you will limit the value that you can get out of Scrum. So unleash your Scrum Masters. They can give you more value, or they can bring more value to your Scrum. So one of the ways is to unleash your Scrum Masters. Some organizations in the Netherlands, they just skip. They remove the Agile coaches and purely focusing on, hey, this is Scrum Master accountability. These are important people. We don't need another person on top of that. We need good Scrum Masters. And in a lot of organizations, we also see Scrum Masters, they're very busy with doing Jira stuff or Azure DevOps stuff, being responsible for moving sticky notes on the board. That's not what you want to be. In an early stage, when I was Scrum Master, I also did that. I was Jira admin, so I was very happy that I could alter the checkboxes and I could alter the labels. I was very proud of myself. But at a certain moment, everybody came to me and said, oh, can you move this sticky note for me? And I thought, well, this is not what I want to be. So be aware of where you position your Scrum Master. You're not like the team secretary. And you're also not the Jira admin. So unleashing your Scrum Masters, helping them to make your teams more effective and more high-performing is something that you could do to boost your Scrum. There are other ways that could help you to boost your Scrum. It's called practicing level 5 leadership. In a lot of organizations, it's easy to blame your leaders, your CEO, or your manager of doing stuff wrong. That's easy to do at the coffee machine, or, I don't know, chatting in Zoom or whatever, or in Slack or whatever. But what we don't do is give our leaders feedback. There was Jim Collins wrote a book, From Good to Great. He did research on organizations and what made them great. And in a lot of those organizations, it were the leaders that made those organizations great. But you don't get there like from the start, right? If you start as an employee, you're not directly a great leader. And he came to this model of practice of 5 levels of leadership. And you probably start somewhere at the bottom, like a highly capable individual. You're proud of your work. You do you do your work well, and you move up to supporting the teams. And even on a higher level, you're still doing that. You're still supporting the teams, but you have evolved to someone who can really give direction, who can create a vision for where you want to go and where your teams want to go. So I now want you to think about a leader that you have in your organization, and think about at what level is that leader acting. And think about that, so read it first, and then write that number on one of the cards. And if you have thought about that, hey, you thought about the leader and at what level is he or she, then you can think about how can I improve him or her? How can I support him or her to get to that level 5 leadership? And to help him or her to become a level 5 leader. So think about that and choose one of the actions that you could give your that you could give your leader feedback on. English very hard. So choose an action that you could take to boost your Scrum. And like I said, this is from the book of Jim Collins. So if you're interested in more, then read more about it. But for now, it's interesting to see that you can give your leaders valuable feedback and compliments. Because if you want to encourage your leaders to come to a higher level, he or she would need feedback to grow. And we'd rather do it in a positive way than just always bashing the managers or our leaders. And so inspiring level 5 leadership, one thing that you could do. Then here we are again, the Scrum values. So one thing that you could do to boost your Scrum is to live by the Scrum values. They're a nice list. I always remember them by the abbreviation FOCCR, F-O-C-C-R, but FOCCR is more memorable. So focus, openness, commitment, courage, and respect, or FOCCR. To have these as more than just a poster on the wall or just as a reminder, it's good to live by these Scrum values. But how do you do that? How do you make them more alive? What I'm going to ask you to do is, in pairs, think about what would be the anti-value. So I'm not going to give examples because that will be too easy. But in pairs, discuss what the anti-value would be. So what would the opposite of focus be? Or what would the opposite of openness be? I'm going to ask you to write those anti-values on your cards. So there's one that says Scrum values. In pairs, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. If you're done, then you can stand up. But please write down the anti-value on your cards. Do it in pairs. This is not a test. You can do it together. You get 5 minutes for that. Until everybody stands. Yeah, anti-openness would be very easy. I'll show them again. Okay. So 5 minutes you spent on thinking about an anti-value. Can someone share one of the values that you discussed? What is an anti-value? Secrecy or a need-to-know basis, yeah, for openness. Anyone else? Unflexibility and blocking. So sometimes people think about, okay, these 5 Scrum values, they are kind of wishy-washy. I don't know how to embody them more or live by the Scrum values. It's good to think about what is the anti-value and then think of an action that you can help to dissolve this anti-value and to make it more concrete. So ways that you could do that is to have a dedicated sprint and say, okay, this sprint we're going to pay attention to everything that's distracting to us. Or you can do a whole sprint retrospective about focus or about non-focusing. And to get them more, to make them more alive, and not just to have them as a poster on the wall, which is also nice, but try to live by them. but living by the Scrum values, well, how can you do that? Make them an anti-value, and then you can probably think of more concrete activities. So using the Scrum values to boost your Scrum. And another way to boost your Scrum is use your brains. That might sound difficult, maybe. It's not that difficult because we believe that multiple brains have more brain power than just a single Scrum Master brain or a single brain. But how can you do that? Well, we try to use new exciting ways to involve everybody. And you can use principles from neuroscience, which are these on the left, or you can try to use liberating structures. What you're trying to achieve is that everybody's thinking about ways to improve, thinking about ways to deliver better, thinking about ways to make your customer more happy or your employees more happy. So these principles, they come from training from the back of the room. I'm not going through all of them, but in this talk you've kind of witnessed a few things that helps to make more engaging talks. And also for events they could help. For instance, talking trumps listening. If I would be doing like a 30-minute talk without involving you, at a certain moment you might feel a little bit relaxed and laid back. But if I ask you to share something, to talk with someone else, you have to be engaged. Right? So you try to involve everybody, and it's not just by me talking for 30 minutes, but involving you to also participate. Another one that we've seen today is writing trumps reading. If you write something down, obviously your body is involved, and you will have to pay attention. You cannot just sit back and relax, what you can do with reading, but you have to think about what you're writing down. It involves your whole body, and that makes you more involved and engaged. Shorter trumps longer. If you know that the human brain pays attention to only 10 to 20 minutes, then you have to divide your sessions, your events, your trainings into smaller parts. Because we are built that way that we go in kind of in a, how do you call that, standby modus to save energy. And that happens after 10 to 20 minutes. And you might have experienced it. And that's not your fault. It's just how your body is built. And that's why we try to chunk up information or sessions or events into smaller parts, so your brain will pay attention. And it comes from a time way back that we had to save energy for hunting and that kind of stuff. So your brain cannot be on all the time. What we also try to do, different trumps same, your brain does not pay attention to boring stuff. If nothing different happens, or in the format, or the things that you show, or the things that you're discussing about, your brain will again go into kind of standby modus. Again, this is built in your brain. It's not something that you can do anything about it. And so we try to, in our sessions, in our Scrum events, we try to vary in the formats, we try to vary in how we discuss, just to keep everybody involved and engaged. That came from a time that we were still in caves, and we would get up, we would look outside, did something change or not? Okay, if not, then we can relax. If something changed, which might endanger our lives, then we knew that we had to pay attention. So if nothing changed in your sprint retrospective, if nothing changed in your boring meetings, your brain will go into that standby modus. And that's not what you want to happen. If you're looking for ways to improve or ways to improve your way of working. So these are a simple, short explanation of the brain science principles. Then we have on the other side, liberating structures. To make your Scrum events more engaging or involved, or even your other boring meetings that you might have, you can use liberating structures. Nobody says that you need to do your daily Scrum in a way that everybody gets a turn. What's that? That's boring. The brain does not pay attention to boring stuff. So make it different. Talk in pairs, talk in small groups, so even the introvert people get a chance to share their progress. And even in a sprint review, it's very boring to look at a 45-minute presentation of all the things that we have delivered. You might want to involve your stakeholders in that conversation. And you might want to choose different ways to do your Scrum events, to do your trainings, to do your conference talks, and to make it more creative and interesting and involved. So these are some examples. If you want to dive deeper into it, there's like a website that has descriptions of all these 33, and experiment with them. If you keep doing your sprint retrospective the same every 2 weeks, that will become boring. But if you switch it up in format or how you facilitate it, it will be more interesting. And these liberating structures can make even the most boring board meeting interesting again. So that's another way to boost your Scrum. I'm going to ask you to make a simple drawing of a brain, just as a reminder to use your brain. So on the card that you have, make a simple drawing of a brain. Then if you're done drawing, I want you to take a look at your cards, the ones that you have in your hands, and think about what is a solution or something that you want to experiment with. And then, what is the smallest step you can take with that? And you write that small step on the last card, on the white one. So think about all your cards and what you have written down or what you have discussed. What is a small step that you could take to boost your Scrum? I'm going to give you 1 minute for that. Write it on the last card. Then I'm going to ask you to stand up. I'm going to make a picture and hold up your one action step. So it's going to be like this, a movie. So I'm going to ask you to stand up, hold your card in the air, and I will check it when I get home. I'll zoom in. Ready? Stand up. I still see some people sitting, but never mind. Hold up your card into the air. 3, 2, 1. Look happy. I'm going to check the movie afterwards, what you written down, of course. Great, thank you for that. The thing that we just did is called a liberating structure. It's called 15%. 15% solutions. And the thing is, you can always think of big plans, right? I've shown you 5 ways to boost your Scrum. You can say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to do all those 5. Probably nothing will succeed. But if you think about what is a small step that you can take, making it very small, then the likelihood that you achieve it is bigger. And so that's a liberating structure called 15% solution. Well, here are some suggestions what you could do. Maybe you have written some of that down. So play by the rules, empower the Scrum Master, start giving feedback to your leaders, remind your team of the Scrum values, and experiment with one liberating structure during one of your Scrum events. Oh, sorry. One back. So what I wanted to say, start small, succeed big. I hope that everyone has at least gotten one idea how to boost your Scrum. That's it. Thank you.